I've got my guest, Richard from Secure Payment Solutions, and Richard and I are going to talk all about taking payments from your customers. Now, this topic is a hot topic in the group. Lots of people ask questions about it and ask about what to. There you go, it's done it to me. What to, who to use, and how much do you pay, and all the things like that. So we're going to cover all of these issues and talk about taking payments from your customers. So, Richard, perhaps you can give us an introduction, please.
Yeah, very briefly. So, yeah, Richard, Secure Payment Solutions. I'm an independent reseller or broker, whichever you want to, whichever term you want to use, for a few different acquirers. I'm sorry, this is an industry that's full of jargon, and one of the things that I desperately try and do is not to use too much jargon, but you'll excuse me if I refer to the odd term. But anyway, I've been doing this for about 8 years. I come from a sales background. I'm a technology geek. I just love gadgets. My home is full of them. I'm trying to control my lights with my Google at the moment, and Google's really annoying me. But I persevere because that's just the way I am. And that's how. Go on.
If I say Alexa, does everything in your house like?
No. You have to say, "Hey Google." I'm not an Alexa house. I'm a Hey Google house.
Okay.
But, yeah, that could happen. Really could. I've always sold technology, be it e-learning, be it telecoms, mobile, and yeah, I just love it. Like I say, I have a thing for technology, and to cut a very long story short, I was given an opportunity about 8 years ago to become a reseller for a relatively new startup called NetPay, that was started by an entrepreneur called Carl Churchill, who is a very successful man. He started his first business, I think he was about 17, a company called Murfix, which was basically it's a billing platform operating within the telecom sector. And to cut a long story short, he sold that business before he was 30 for a few million quid. And after having a golden handcuffs period in one of the very large telecoms companies, a company called Daisy, he went out on his own and started NetPay, because he knew that the industry needed disrupting. And 8 years on from him starting up NetPay, I think it's more true than ever that the industry needs disrupting. It needs shaking up. And that is why I am here. I am a reseller because I can be, because Carl has effectively given me the opportunity to do that. I'm very passionate about it because I'm very passionate about giving people good service, giving people clear advice, as I've already intimated, in an industry that is absolutely awash with jargon. Yeah. And billing platforms that are designed to confuse, and that's one of my pet hates. It's what happened in mobile 20 years ago. Mobile bills were clearly designed to confuse people. The energy industry's been through it. All of those industries have been through it, and now the payments industry needs to sharpen up its game and give better service and keener pricing. And one of the ways that it happened in the mobile industry was effectively being opened up to independent resellers. And the kind of companies I'm talking about are Charles Dunstan, who was Car Phone Warehouse, John Cordwell, who was Phones for You. They became very successful businesses because they came into the mobile industry and offered better billing, better service, and as a result of that, all of our mobile bills came tumbling down. And that's pretty much where where the payments industry is at right now. Plus, there's all these different technologies that are merging, which means that you can do really cool and clever stuff. And I wouldn't mind sort of touching on that at some point today. But that's me in a nutshell. And
we certainly like a bit of disruption. Things that have disrupted this industry so far, like the banking industry. You've got Starling and Monzo. I think they've really stepped into the banking industry and torn it apart. Yeah. And the high street banks should hang their heads in shame sometimes with what they do. And I hope that So the payment industry, taking the payments from your customer industry, like you said, is full of jargon, and that jargon just really creates that fear as a business owner as to where do I go? Where do I go? And I suppose we'll touch on it later, like SumUp and Zettel and Square seem quite straightforward. So a lot of people turn to them, don't they? But first of all, let's sort of touch on, so my group is a group full of pet professionals, pet groomers. They either work out of shops, or they go to people's houses, or they work out of a van, or people come to their sort of house, as in they might have a studio where they groom the dogs. So, you know, there's going to be some kind of financial transaction for that service. So we've got a real mixture of ways to take money. Some people are still cash only. Some people, I don't think we take checks anymore. I really don't know. I think the checks are still out there, but they're probably long gone soon. But people take cash and pay the cash in. So there might be a sole trader. So by taking cash, they don't have to have a business bank account, so that means it's free to pay the cash in, so that's fine. Some people will take bank transfer, which again is free, but you end up probably chase some of your customers for that bank transfer. Some people will invest in a SumUp or a Zettel or Square, and some of us will have what I call grown-up card machines.
It's funny, I've used that exact terminology myself, but I normally keep it to myself, I must admit, but it's quite interesting to hear somebody else talk about it. In that way. And
my philosophy, and I'm always really open with this, is if I personally go out of my way to avoid companies that take cash only. I do not carry cash. And I have this sort of discussion and arguments with people over the time. If I walk into your shop and I've got £20 in my pocket, that's all you're going to get from me, because I haven't got any more. So I'm going to spend £20 with you. And then I get the argument, well, people know how much they're going to need to spend. So, okay. But if I turn into your shop and I've got a credit card on me that's got a limit of £2,500 or whatever, I might not spend my limit on you, but I'm going to be using my card and, oh, I quite like that product. I quite like that brush. Can you just do that add-on for me? I'm just going to tap my card on that payment machine. So that's my philosophy behind being a grown-up business and taking card payments. And I'm going to mention John Dean, actually, because it's a mutual friend of ours. And I've always said to him, get a card machine. You know, how many trades, plumbers, electricians, and I think they are cotton onto it now. If you need to replace your boiler and you haven't got that money, but you've got it on a credit card, take the credit card, you know, and it opens up that business. So that's where I come from. So maybe you can give us your insights around the benefits of taking card payment from your customer.
Well, exactly as you've just very eloquently explained. But I mean, I've actually got a really interesting example as well of I mentioned I've got a few bits of business going at the moment, and one of them is it's actually a white goods business up in Gravesend, and he's built his business. It's a really great business model. He's built it through a desire not to put stuff into landfill, and he said, right, I'm going to start repairing white goods, because it wasn't happening. You know, I think the manufacturer's philosophy was, right, well, if it's broke, we throw it away and we'll sell you another one. But he came along and went, no, I don't think that's good enough. I don't think that's responsible way to behave. And he started fixing stuff. And this was about 20 years ago, and he became very, very successful. And now he's got to the point where he wants to take it to the next level. And one of the things that I talked to him about, so you're talking about Zettel and Square and SumUp, all of which are great solutions, by the way. What they're very good at doing is integrating the world of EPOS. I'm doing jargon again, but you know, EPOS stands for electronic point of sale. It's effectively, you know, the ability to have a menu of items that you record and track, link it to pricing, and then links to accounting. And so that's what they've done very well. But you can link it to a card transaction and a cash transaction. It effectively means that you can manage your whole business in one place, and they've done that really, really well. The next generation of card machines within the grown-up sphere, to use your term, Bill, is the old-fashioned PDQ machine did one job. It was like an old Nokia 3310. A Nokia 3310 was brilliant at making phone calls. That was all it did. And the old-fashioned PDQ machine, that's all that did. No, did it very, very well. But now you've got a next generation of machines that run on Android. Okay, they've got a screen, they've got a processor, they've got memory, and all of a sudden you can use that machine to do all of the stuff that Zettel have been doing for, Zettel and Square and some have been doing for a few years now. But now you've got the ability to pay what I would call a sensible rate to process a transaction, as opposed to having to pay, let's be honest, you're not going to pay any less than 1.5%, even if you negotiate hard. From my experience, I don't believe that they would go any lower than that. More likely, you're looking at 1.75 to 2%. But now you've got these smart card machines. So this white goods manufacturer, what he can now do is, if he's going to do a repair or service somebody's machine, in that device, he's now got his whole ethos on that card machine, which is got, by the way, it's got a SIM card in it, so he can go to the person's house, and at that point, I'm really, with the best will in the world, sometimes your washing machine's broke and there ain't no fixing it. And at that point, he has the opportunity to sell something, an alternative to that customer in their own home, and know exactly what he's got in stock. And he can take the payment and the order right there and then. As you very eloquently pointed out, Bill, this is, if you've got the capability to take a card payment from somebody, you just have the possibility, the opportunity to sell something a bit more than they might have originally thought they were going to buy when they first walked in. And,
yeah,
and
so
I don't think we should be ashamed of that as salespeople.
No, I think one of the things I'm sort of trying to put across is that we're all salespeople for our businesses. And I suppose relating that into a pet grooming sort of scenario is, if you have a dog come to the door and they know that they're going to be charged £35, and then you've got this amazing new service like teeth cleaning, and you say, well, it's an extra £25 today. And they're like, well, sorry, I've only bought £35 with me. Or, it's giving you that ability to upsell your services and upsell and sell the stock and the products you've got around you, and
also book appointments. By the way, this is another capability that these machines have got built in. Within an EPOS system, you've also got integrated CRM systems, and that means that you've got the ability to book that appointment again, all through the same device, with text reminders. So as soon as you book the appointment in, a text will go out, oh, thanks for booking this appointment. And then the day before, they'll send another one. And by the way, but they're going to turn up anyway, because presumably you will have taken a deposit from them, won't you? Sure. Well, I would have thought.
That's interesting you say that, because there's straight away, as soon as we started this conversation, someone said, how about taking deposits? As a groomer, is it worth taking a deposit for first-time grooms? Well, when you start looking at the posts in the group,
the day before,
people really suffer with no-shows. So taking a deposit is a really good idea. And again, if you ask for someone to do a bank transfer deposit for you, are you going to be having to chase them for that deposit? Or if you've got them on the phone, why not do that deposit through a card machine there and then?
Well, you immediately lose control of the sale. That's what I've always felt, and I also feel that nobody in this day and age should be expected to offer any kind of a product or service without an upfront payment. I really believe that. Why? You have overheads. You offer a great service. You're very passionate about what you do. Why would you offer a dog grooming service without taking some kind of an upfront payment? To me, I wouldn't expect. I don't have a dog, but if I've had dogs, and believe you me, if I had one, somebody said to me, "Yeah, you booked in. Could you just pay me a £20 deposit?" 100%. Why would I not?
It's that commitment, isn't it? It's skin in the game, as some people would say. And we've got a customer, I believe she's from South Africa, and she can't believe that we don't take deposits when we're booking dogs in.
Well, I'm a bit the same. Yeah.
Cannot understand, because And it's a culture thing, isn't it? We don't, when we book a restaurant table for a fancy restaurant or a busy restaurant, we leave card details. If we book a hotel room, we leave card details, and we're made well aware that, if you don't turn up or if you cancel within a certain number of times, then you're going to get charged for it. And it's a culture thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and the restaurant industry is going to have to learn this as well, because already in the press there's lots of talk of bookings are now precious, restaurant places are now precious, and people are not turning up. And for me, I think that's unacceptable. I don't, it sounds almost to me like people are going, right, I'm going to put 2 or 3 places, at the same time, and at the last minute I'll just make up my mind, which one I'm going to go to, depending on how I feel. And I don't think that's on, in the current trading environment. I don't think that's on. I think that, businesses need to cover their costs, and I think it's fair to take an upfront payment.
It's an interesting analogy that you make, actually, and I think I can relate that to our own dog grooming business, where we will book a dog in, and then suddenly you get a message saying, "Oh no, I've gone somewhere else." I think you're right. I think our appointments are quite scarce, and you can't book in at short notice for a lot of groomers. So maybe they phone around, they get an appointment, then they keep phoning around, and then they choose who they're going to use, and then they just let the others down. So again, taking that deposit and having that ability to take that deposit over the phone there and then they're either going to say no, sorry, goodbye, and you don't want them as a customer anyway, or you're going to secure that deposit and that cash flow.
Exactly. And also I think, again, if I was a customer, if I was engaging with a business and they were asking me for a deposit, at that point I would think, right, this is a business that clearly knows how to run a business, that's running it as a business. And at that point, it would put them in a category potentially above somebody who's just started up a business 6 months ago because they happen to like dogs and they had nothing to do in lockdown. So I think there's many benefits.
Yeah. So let's go on. I want to sort of debunk some of the fear that there is in the industry about taking on what I call a big boy card machine. So when I say or big business card machine, I'm talking about a card machine where you are committed to a contract, and I think that's where some of that fear is. So at the moment, we'll get a lot of comments in the group who will go, I use SumUp, Zettle, and Square, and I use one of those myself to take payments for certain things because I'm just starting out. So the amount of money that I'm taking isn't that high. So there's nothing wrong with that. And I think they offer good solutions for people who are starting out. But let's try and debunk some of the fear around going out there and getting yourself a contract, and what you're saying about the terminology and the hiding all the terms and conditions and the percentages and stuff. I think that's where it comes down to people not wanting to do that and committing.
Yeah, and I think it's a very fair position to take as a business owner. I know plenty of companies that sadly are still making people sign up to very onerous terms and conditions. As we discussed before we came on the call, companies that will automatically roll you into new contracts, companies that will hide behind terminology in order to charge you what are effectively hidden fees. Companies that will sell on headline rates. That's one of my, we'll give you 0.4% for debit cards and 0.9% for credit cards.
So what's a headline?
It's meaningless.
What's a headline rate then? What do you mean by a headline rate?
Well, that's by talking in those terms. So if somebody phoned you up and said, look, have a look at your statement. What are you paying for debit cards? And somebody will go, oh, at the moment I'm paying 0.75%. Well, we'll give you 0.4. And then what about credit cards? Oh, I'm paying 1.5%. All right, well, we'll give you 0.95. The reality is there's so many different schemes. So you've got MasterCard debit, you've got Visa credit, and so on. And within each scheme issuer, they have their own different schemes, like MasterCard World, MasterCard New World, all of which there is the potential to offer, to sell at a different rate. So they might give you 0.4% for one of those schemes, but for the other ones, if it's not written down, if they will charge you an exorbitant rate. Or another favorite is non-qualified transactions. And again, I don't really feel the need to go into a depth about what that means, but basically, it's another premium charge. If the person using their card hasn't updated their billing, then the industry sees it as more of a risk. Right. Yeah, so they charge a premium to process the transaction, and that may be charged at an exorbitant rate, or any one of a number of other fees. So what you have to do is when you get, because at some point you will sign up to the terms and conditions, and it will be written out. You've just got to make sure that you study them all and you challenge them. If you've got a salesperson pinging you like 3-liner emails going, 0.4% on debit cards and 0.8% on credit cards, the alarm bells should be going like to the max, because it means if they haven't detailed out all of the different scheme fees, authorization charges, non-qual charges, then they are hiding something.
So if it's too good to be true, then they say
it's too good to be true.
If it's too good to be true, then it is too good. It's not true, is it?
Then it's not true in all likelihood. And so I probably haven't done a lot of good there to allay the fear. But the point is, there are many companies out there. Myself, my company is one of them, who just will not do that. Because I've come from this, I've had this journey going through mobile and and fixed line telecoms, and I've seen how badly businesses can operate. And I'm just an honest bloke, and I can still make enough money without ripping people off. And at that point, I have no qualms about saying to people, right, I'm asking you to sign for a 36-month term, please, because I can't run my business without having some kind of ability to plan for what my business is going to take over a period of time. Mm-hmm. I can't offer the rates that I offer without having an idea of what my business is going to earn, and I charge a setup fee. It's not very much, 50 quid, but that's what, and I make it very clear, that's what it costs. At the end of the 36-month term, you are free to go elsewhere. We do not automatically re-sign people. I would then phone somebody up and ask them.
So there's obviously a place in the market for SumUp and Zettle and Square and those card machines. And someone put a really good post in my group the other day where she had taken X amount of pounds during that month. We're all getting busier and busier, and her charges, she suddenly realized that her charges were about £200 using one of these what do we call them, like no contract fixed fee machines. So where do we draw the line? Where do we do you
I'm looking at my phone just to make a very quick calculation based on what you just told me.
So I think normally the fees are fixed at around 1.75% per transaction.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm going to go on a 2%. Yeah, so that would imply to me, if she was being charged 2%, that would imply to me that she's taken about 10 grand. Mm. Now she's well into the sphere of what we talked about earlier, of she's crossed the point of pain, which it's normally between £3,000 and £5,000. As you rightly point out, Square, iZettle, SumUp, fantastic solutions when you're starting up, because you're not taking very much. And when you start up, people find a lot of security in this idea that, well, do you know what? If I don't sell anything, it won't cost me anything. Because when you go for a grown-up solution, whether you use it or not, it will cost you a lot. It will cost you a significant amount of money. It will cost you probably 50 quid a month, even if you don't use it. However, it's for you to make up in your own mind as a business owner, and this is my opinion, if you're going to be successful or not. Yeah. Now, if you're happy or going to be happy, or if maybe that's all your aspiration is, you know, to take 1 or 2 grand a month. Maybe that's all you've ever wanted. Stick with Square, stick with SumUp, stick with Zettle. But as soon as you get to the point where you're taking more than 5 grand a month on cards, it's going to start hurting, and you are paying more than you need to be. At that point, the fixed charges of owning a grown-up solution will be swallowed into the savings that you will make by using said solutions, where you're going to be paying well below 1% for normal credit cards and well below 1% for normal debit cards. You'll be paying more than 1% for a business credit card. You always will be, but I mean, especially in your sphere, that's unlikely you're going to get many business credit cards. And on average, I think, you know, people will, when you combine debit and credit cards, you should be looking to pay in the region of 1%. You know, and that's it. But that point of pain is somewhere between 3 and 5 grand.
And that 0.75%, you know, we're talking, people might go, well, you're talking small figures here, but I don't know if you're able to give a similar illustration as to what a solution from you would be and how much you'd pay a month. I don't want to put you on the spot, but, you know, we're talking 0.75%.
I have made savings. I must admit, I'm much more diligent about deleting my old folders nowadays. And that's because of compliance. But I have made savings for companies in excess of 50%. Wow. In terms of what they pay to process card transactions. Let me see if I can find a good one.
You know, and there's different ways to grow your business, and that is obviously get more customers, get them to pay more, get them to pay more often, but also shrinking your expenses. And when you can start shrinking your expenses, the money that you're saving is going onto your profits, isn't it? It's going into your bottom line.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry, I can't find an example off the top of my head. Like I said, I did make the point quite recently of deleting a lot of old folders because I was storing a lot of compliance information there, and I just knew I had to do it, so I've deleted them all. But particularly in e-commerce, because in e-commerce you've got companies like Stripe or PayPal, and they'll be charging in excess of 2%. And some e-commerce businesses, you know, they can go like that very, very quickly. And if you're charging 2 or over 3% on a debit card, and all of a sudden you get them over to a solution that's costing them sub 1%, the savings are immense. In that example you just gave, so let's assume that person took 10 grand, they were paying 2%, so their charges were 200 quid. You know, if we gave them a blended rate of 1%, those charges would halve. You know, they would go from £200 to £100. The savings are really very, very, very significant.
No, that's it. And I put so here's an example. So our business, our dog grooming business, in April, we took £14,300 in card transactions in April, and our bill from the card people was £117.65 inclusive of VAT. So straight away, if you've taken £10,000 and you're paying £200 in bills, or we've taken £14,000 and we're paying almost half, haven't we? So like you said, you could save 50%.
Yeah.
Just by taking that leap and investing in your business, I suppose, and investing in, I keep saying it, a grown-up solution.
Yeah, it's one that's going to cost you money whether you use it or not. You know, you're going to have a line rental on the machine. You're going to have a charge for PCI DSS compliance, again, jargon. But it's an industry compliance that and you have to do it. And how it works is they take you through a course. You do it once a year, and as long as you do it, then you don't get charged penalty charges. Yeah. So you've got your line rental, PCI DSS, and then if you and there's a minimum charge for transactions. So if you didn't do any transactions, they would still charge you £15. Obviously, if you, but you know, I always, if I'm talking to anybody for whom the minimum charge may come into play, I always feel like I'm talking to the wrong person anyway.
Yeah.
I should be talking to somebody who is probably at the minimum looking at doing £5 a month, because then they'll always do £5 a month, and the minimum charge for transactions will not come into play anyway. So it's an irrelevance.
Yeah, and I think also if you're incentivized, i.e. you're paying a monthly direct debit to have your card machine, it kind of incentivizes you to use it and to utilize it and to do those upsell. Cheryl here has said upselling is so important. I booked 3 dogs in, and when they came, they upgraded to mud spa, teeth and anal glands on each. So that means she made an extra £40 per dog, which she would never have been able to do if she didn't have a card machine.
There you go.
That's it. Sandra's just put on here, the confusing part of having a grown-up solution charges for rental, PCI per item charge and percentage fee. Yes, I got stung with the minimum charge in the first lockdown. Was there any solutions that people could have done with this? Because obviously we're sitting there with these card machines that weren't being used.
Yeah, acquirers were waiving minimum charges. So you should have been made aware of that. We waived minimum charges for all of our customers.
Right. So you still paid the monthly sort of standing order, but the minimum charge.
Well, NetPay actually what they did is they reduced, so the terminal charge, they reduced it down to, I think it was a £5 a month, and or what they did was they elongated the contract by however many months it was reduced for.
Okay, so when also I think when we've got pet groomers working in all different sort of situations, they're not just all working from they're not all just working from a shop. They're mobile and they're in-house. They're in their own houses. Do the payment solutions that you provide now, can they go mobile with them?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean they've all got Wi-Fi, and they've all you have the option to have a live SIM card in it, and that means that you've effectively got your whole business in that device. You've got EPOS. Loyalty is another massive one that we haven't even touched on yet. The ability to integrate loyalty programs. If you've got a particularly good customer, that keeps coming back, reward them, and you can store all that information. I mean, obviously, the space you've got on the screen is limited. But don't forget, you will still have the opportunity to go back to a web browser in your office or at home, and then access the whole system through that way, and look at customer records and do loyalty, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's that's
how does the loyalty thing work? That's quite interesting. Do you issue your customers with like a tag so they can scan that, or how does loyalty work with it?
Well, you can actually link transactions now to customers. So when an EPOS system that I looked at quite recently, which is called Register, which is very interesting. Once you've done the sale, you would literally just allocate the transaction to their customer record. I mean, you would set up their customer record, with name, address, and any other stuff you wanted to record, their date of birth, potentially, what their preferences are for, I don't know, so I don't know your marketplace very well, but any other things that they may have a preference for. And then you would just go into that record, and you can analyze customers and their usage patterns, and based on that, you could just send them a promotion. Or if you wanted to, you could just give them a bog standard 10% off every time they come in. If they're that good, they're literally bringing Rover in every month. Why not give them 10% off every?
Every 6 transaction they get so much off there.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can program it to do all that.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Excellent. And I suppose I don't know whether this is right, but so during the first lockdown, as we were coming out of the first lockdown, we cancelled something like 450 appointments during lockdown. So we had to reschedule all these. So we actually invested in an iZettle machine to go in the shop, and we brought our normal card terminal home so we could take deposits to get the cash flow back up and running. Now, the difference for us was iZettle took the charge at point of sale, so they take it and then put the money in our account. Whereas the card machine that we had on contract, we paid a monthly fee. Does that work? is that the way it's always set up, or is it different depending on what company you go with?
Yeah, I mean, you're charged for transactions on a monthly basis, with a grown-up solution. I must admit, I thought Zettel did the same. Okay. It might be. Yeah, I know some providers, they take off the cost of processing the transaction off the settlement. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So before they dumped the money into our account,
Yeah, they've taken the cost of it off.
Yeah. Whereas the other machine, because we were paying at the end of the month, we got the full amount into.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But what this did was it then proper messed up my QuickBooks.
Yeah, totally. That would make reconciliation impossible.
Well, not impossible, but it proper screwed up my QuickBooks, because I was putting into QuickBooks the full amount, and then when the money was coming into QuickBooks, it wasn't it was going like, well, where is it? This is like, it doesn't recognize it because it's a couple of pence short. And I was like, oh, tear my hair out.
Yeah. No, with a fixed cost solution, we need to stop calling it grown up, don't we? I think we really do. Yeah. With a fixed cost solution, they charge you the transaction charges once a month in addition to the settlements. Settlements are made every day, normally about 2 or 3 days in arrears. And then once a month you get the charges, and you get a monthly statement making it very clear the volume and value of transactions that you've taken and what you paid to process them.
Cool. And so if you were looking to set up a fixed solution, do you need to have like a credit rating? Does your company, or do you then go and do credit scores on the people? And is that ever a barrier for you when you're trying to set it up?
I've got to be honest here. It's a lot more of a barrier for me as a reseller than it is if you went to the acquirers direct. Seems to me that they will sell to anybody and everybody, and their risk model completely changes. Yes, no, you will go through effectively a compliance stroke credit checking process. But it's not normally a problem. I mean, it's not an issue if you're a new startup, because they tend to do the credit checks based on the directors or a sole trader if you're a sole trader. And if your credit history, if you haven't got any CCJs or anything like that, your credit history is solid, it's fine. It's not a problem. So don't be concerned about the fact that, I only started trading last week, or I set up a limited company last week. It doesn't matter. As long as your personal credit history is good, then it's fine. But there are some industries that are seen to be higher risk than others. Actually, I didn't look before we did this. I should have done. I can't see that there would be any issue with your industry, because basically you are, I mean, you a dog comes in, you do a service, that's it. The dog, what they're concerned about is chargebacks. Yeah. And what they hate is people taking deposits and not delivering the service for another 6 months. Say people who make kitchen cabinets, for example. Mm-hmm. You might take a $5,000 deposit on a kitchen cabinet, and you don't deliver it for 6 months. They see that whole 6 months. If you go out of business, they have to return that money to the consumer. The acquirers do, and they see that as huge risk. But in your industry, I can't see that.
It's pretty much payment on the day. Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. And you do the service, and that's it. Your dealings with that customer it's now in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you are tied into a contract. Normally, do you say 36 months?
That's what that's what I go for. That's what I'm most comfortable with. I don't do 48 months. If somebody asks me to do 24 months, I will begrudgingly look at it. But my preference is 36. Yeah.
And does that change the rates at all as to what people?
No, I know what I need to be selling at in order to make my business viable. And what it does make an impact on is the upfront commission I get on the hardware, which is a lease. Yeah, so it's like any other lease purchase. There's a volume of money that is effectively accrued, and out of that profit they give me a chunk. And if I sell it on a 24-month term, then I get less than if I was to sell it on 36. Not as much as I would on a 48, but I don't know. I always feel that 48, it just sounds like a long time to me.
Yeah.
And I think I would, whereas 36 months, I think that's reasonable. So that's why I sell. That's why I choose to sell.
I mean, we've been going for 16 years, so we're quite confident that hopefully we'll be going for another 16 years. But say you took out a 36-month contract, and then the worst thing happened, and you couldn't, you had to close the business. I mean, what happens then? Did you?
Yeah, you
have
to pay. Yes, you are. Yeah, you're liable for the cost of the lease.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you've committed to in terms of the lease on the hardware, then you would have to pay that back. Unless, of course, it was in a limited company, and if you wound a limited company up, then
you lose out.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, another thing that we take American Express, and I don't know if that's like a horrible word in your industry. I don't know.
Not at all. No, American Express, they are an acquirer in their own right, and you would need to get a merchant ID, again jargon, but you would need to get your own, effectively, card processing account with Amex, and you just plug it into our card machine. It's fine, but their charges are separate and their settlement process is separate.
Yes, there's nothing to do with yourselves, but again, they are another. They take their charges before they give you the money, so they are another one when you're looking at your banking, and if you're linked in with QuickBooks or Xero software like that, they're another one where you need to look out, because when you have to reconcile your QuickBooks and stuff, knowing that you've got an American Express charge in there, because they take their money before they give you them. Before they give you the money, don't they?
I didn't realise that Amex do it as well. It's weird. I don't know why you would do that.
I don't know. It makes things fun for my bookkeeper, not for me. So what's kind of so we've got the bog standard card machine. You can either do contactless or put the card in and take payment. So what other solutions are you able to offer? Like you said, things are going on leaps and bounds with technology. What else do you offer as part of your contracts?
Well, like I say, the big thing now is, I've said it in blog posts and in advertising campaigns that I'm doing on Facebook right now. People shouldn't be looking at what I call an old-fashioned PDQ machine. So they're given away by the monochrome screen with the big square buttons on the front, as you would see in Sainsbury's, Tesco's, and so on and so forth. Don't be looking at those anymore, because for the same price, you can now get a smart card reader, which is, like I say, it runs on Android. It has a processor in it. It has a big screen on it where the buttons are likely to be part of the screen. You can get these kind of things that overlay onto the screen if you want. But that is, and the cost of one of those devices on its own, just the rental of one of those machines, the lease, whatever, is exactly the same as an old-fashioned PDQ. But it means you can run apps on it. And for apps, read EPOS. For apps, read the ability to integrate with Xero and QuickBooks. So all of your, that's one of the bits of business I've got going through at the moment. It's actually a funeral business in Tunbridge Wells. One of their biggest issues was getting their transactions to reconcile directly into Xero. Well, the apps are chargeable, as you would expect, but the cost of the device with the capability to do all this other stuff is the same. Yeah, and it's one of those things. If you look at it and you go, do you know what? If I can do X, Y, and Z, I'll pay for X, Y, and Z. But it's an additional charge. It's an app. So one app might be EPOS, one app might be loyalty, one app might be the ability to integrate with Xero or QuickBooks or whatever. So that's where the marketplace is going. It's exciting. It's very, very exciting.
Yeah. And are these machines going to start helping us to save time? And that's what we're very time poor as an industry. We're like, just tap your card and we're off to do the next one, sort of thing.
I think so, because while you're in front of your customer, you've got that potential to sell them a couple of other bits and bobs, but do it all literally while it's there. Print out the receipt for all the services they bought, or the whatever they brought their dog in for, and anything else that they bought, and maybe book in their next appointment. All done in instead of maybe having to write it down and then go away and do it when you get home, which maybe how some people do it, I don't know. You've got the ability to do it all there on that device, there and then, booked, paid for.
Booked and paid for, and probably you're able to email receipts over to people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Try and cut down on some paper, and by cutting down on paper, again, you're cutting your costs, aren't you?
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
So how do we move forward? Obviously, I've got a conversation with you next week because we're coming to an end of our contract with our current supplier. And now, I don't know, we haven't had the conversation yet. I don't know, I'm thinking the rates will probably be better, if not the same. But for me, it's about not dealing with a big corporate company. It's about, I've got a problem, Richard, can you sort it out for me? And that's why I'm coming to you to sort out our payment solution, because I'm fed up. I've had some issues with our card machine where we changed bank accounts and they didn't set up the direct debit, so we fell behind on our payments, and their sort of website back office stuff was just appalling. I could never tell how much I owed them, and we were getting phone calls saying you owe us this, and you're like, well, I don't know how much we owe you. So I want to change to someone who can give me that more personal service. And for me, it's not always about saving that money. It's about having that personal service, so I can go and say, well, there's an issue here, or can you help me with that?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm switching from the large provider and going into someone like you as a broker.
Yeah, I mean, you are still engaging contractually with one of the big boys. I wouldn't want to make you think anything other than that. However, I am always a point of escalation who will take ownership of a problem. If you phone me up and said, look, I've got a real problem with this, and if it's about the functionality of a machine or a billing issue or whatever, I haven't been given a problem yet that I haven't been able to answer or solve. It's not normally that difficult. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You tend not to get that with the large companies. I use my main acquirer, again, the big bank that I use is called First Data. Now, if you dealt with them directly, you would deal with a call center operative, probably in Basildon in Essex, and their motivation to sort your problem out is very, very low. My motivation to sort your problem out is very, very high, because at the end of your 3 months, I've got a business plan. I want to grow this business, and we're all business owners. We have plans for where we want to take the business, and where we want to be after that. When our businesses, we don't need them anymore, or we're too old to have a business. And I'm on that path and that journey the same as everybody else. But I know that I won't achieve that if I don't look after people, and if people at the end of their 3-year term, they go off somewhere else. So I want to ensure that the experience that you have with me is overwhelmingly positive, so that at the end of it, you will go, no, I've really, that has been, that 3-year period that I've been with these guys has been good, and I'm happy to re-sign. Yeah,
and I think that's what we're looking for, is that relationship. And I think that relationship, you must, as a business, have a good relationship with your accountant, because they're going to save you money, and they're going to give you hopefully really good advice to save money. I think you need good relationships with these other people who you use on a monthly basis, and we're going to be using a card machine on a monthly basis, so I want a good relationship with my card provider.
Yeah.
And it's not very often that it goes wrong or we need to speak to them, but when you do need to speak to them and it becomes a 6-month trial, it's just like, it's just,
well, that's not what you're in business for, is it? Really, you're in business to look after people's dogs. You're not in business to be hanging on a phone onto a call center.
Email trails and stuff like that.
Or email, yeah, even worse.
just, I know that you're a broker and not the provider, but how easy or how are you able to integrate with other systems? I know obviously you integrate with Xero and QuickBooks and things like that, but obviously there's a lot of dog grooming customer relationship systems and diary systems, and I was wondering
Right, this is a really interesting point, actually, and I'm glad you've asked. I was on a presentation about a month ago where NetPay, so the company that is that I'm a reseller for, they've been a bit, up until now I've been on their case, they've been a bit slow on this kind of stuff, but at long last they are now working on a single API to enable all of this stuff to integrate with multiple providers. Now, I'm not saying that it will necessarily integrate with, your chosen dog grooming software, but what I am saying is there's a lot better chance that it will once they've completed this. They've actually given this project a name, they've now got a product manager within the business who is effectively heading up all these new technologies that are now, forging to the forefront, based on Android, based on open systems, effectively. And the next step is really getting them to talk to each other in such a way that it saves you time and money. I mean, I totally get why you would want to integrate with a dog grooming software and not change to maybe something like Register, which, if you look at it, it's got lots and lots of case studies in restaurants. Has it got many case studies? Well, I believe there are a few, actually. I know they've got case studies within the beauty industry anyway. But are you going to change from something that is purpose-built for dog grooming to something that isn't? I don't know. However, would you be inclined to use it if you could just integrate it, using an API? Yeah, of course. Now, it's a hot property in this marketplace at the moment. The ability to exchange that information securely and in a timely way to save you time and money. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so an API is like a code, isn't it? It sits behind the scenes on the websites.
It's really difficult to explain what an API is, actually. But I'll tell you why, because I don't know. Because I'm not. I know what it stands for. It stands for Application Programming Interface. But what it means is that something like Xero can talk to a CRM system, so that you can attach a transaction record within Xero to a customer, and it just happens without you even knowing, and it's done securely.
What we'll do, and I've already tagged the lady in this group who owns and runs a pet grooming system called Savvy Pet, and I've already tagged her in this conversation. So hopefully Lisa will listen to this, and I'll pass you on. Maybe we'll get you in touch, or whoever's the contact at First Net, was it?
First Date. Well, no, NetPay is NetPay, so NetPay is the company that's effectively building this integration service. The acquirer is First Data, but they're the people that ultimately process the transactions.
Well, I'll be getting in touch with Lisa and just saying where are we at with this, and are you in touch with them, and see if we can sort that out and see if it's something she's interested in. So that'd be really good.
Yeah.
So how do we get hold of you? I know how to get hold of you. I'm speaking to you next week about our card system, but if we've got people in this group who are taking, more than £3,000 to £5,000 a month in sales, which, let's face it, it's not a lot. It's not a lot of money. You can do this. You can push past that £3,000 to £5,000. Not just dog grooming, in offering extra services and extra products and upselling. You can get past that £3,000 to £5,000 mark, and you can do it really quickly. So if we've got people in this group who aspire or are looking at their sum up, Izettle, or all those other cards, and they're looking at transactions, going, "Wow, I've done like £8,000 this month, and I'm paying a lot of money." How do we get hold of you, and how can we?
Well, just go to my website. Secure Payment Solutions is my trading name, and it's Secure Payment Solutions on all social media. So I've got a Twitter account, I've got an Instagram account, I've got a Facebook account. I say all. Those are the three, because I'm in my 50s, and I still think that those are all that exist. Or you could put into if you put into Google Secure Payment Solutions, I'm pretty sure because you never know, obviously, because I spend too much time looking at my own website on my own browser, so it always comes up top. But
Yeah.
I would hope the amount of time and effort I put into blogs and SEO and stuff, that if you put secure payment solutions into Google, that I would come up, well, my business would come up fairly near the top. And
Cool.
from there, sorry, go on.
And what's the process if they speak to you? I remember we've had a conversation before where we look at all of our transactions and you give us a fair assessment as to what you can do for us.
If it's about price, then I will do a line-by-line comparison. But I can only do that with one of the traditional acquirers who actually break it down. With iZettle, Square or SumUp, you're paying 1.75 flat. So there's no line-by-line comparison to be done, but we can certainly get an idea of what the savings are likely to be. But I hope that I can add more value than just saving you money. I expect I would be able to save you and probably most people money. But for me, where this gets exciting for me is enabling you to run your business better, more effectively, more time efficiently, more cost efficiently. Because that means if you're doing that, you've got more time to focus on dogs.
Yeah, take more money, get more money into your accounts.
Exactly. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, it's been really, really interesting speaking to you, and I'm sure people in this group will have learned a lot. And I'm hoping that, even if they don't come to you and say, Richard, please help me, I want them at the very, very least to look at how much money they're taking in a month, look at how much money they're taking via card, and approach you and see if you can save them money, because that's what this group is about. This is about business information and business help to help them grow their businesses and make them better business owners. So if you can save money within your business, then that's a massive win. If you're not on a card machine, if you're just still taking cash and bank transfers, we're going to probably have a little bit of an argument because sometimes people say, oh, it's fine, it works for me, that's fine. But let's have an open mind and just consider and maybe trial one of the free, one of the card machines where you don't have to pay up a fee up front. Maybe trial one and see how it goes, because I've got an iZettle machine sitting in a drawer, which I don't use now, but it's there if I need it. Yeah. So you can still sign up with these people and you don't get charged if you don't use it. So just trial it and see. You might be pleasantly surprised. And when you do start taking large amounts of money, because you're going to start looking at payment solutions with people like yourselves. That's where I want the clear message for this chat, and hopefully people will stop and think and have a look at their payments and how much money they're taking. So it's been really good to speak to you about it.
Well, look, it's been a great opportunity. Thank you for asking me. I really do thoroughly appreciate it. And as we all do, I like talking about my business. So I've found that it was quite enjoyable. I haven't had as much opportunity to do so over the last year as I maybe would have liked. So thank you for that, and I'll look forward to catching up with you next week, Bill.
Awesome. Yeah, and the wonders of Zoom, we can speak to each other all over the place, can't we?
I know. What a wonderful thing it is.
Okay, take care.
All right, cheers.